Welcome to jobs.ac.uk's Google Plus Hangout on the topic postdoctoral and research opportunities in Germany. It's quite an interesting topic we are going to talk today, as Germany has a really diverse research landscape with over 1,000 publicly funding institutions, but career paths which could sometimes be a little bit difficult, but a lot of opportunities are for you in Germany. Recently, the research expenditure of Germany is nearly 80 billion euros, and Germany is one of the few European countries matching the 3% of the GDP in research and investment in research. We have currently working over 600,000 people in research and development, and you already see there are a lot of good opportunities to go to Germany and to do a postdoc especially. One last figure I would like to mention is that currently in the ERC starting grants, which is the European funding scheme for postdoctoral researchers, Germany covers after the UK's second place. A lot of international researchers come to Germany at the moment, postdoctorals especially, and we have a lot of funding opportunities available, which we are going to talk today about, but we are also going to cover areas like living and funding, as I said already, but also how to apply for a postdoc position. But first of all, I would like to introduce our panel. My name is Katja Lasch. I'm working for the German Academic Exchange Service based in Bonn, and I'm head of the section of International Research Marketing. I would now ask Belinda to introduce herself.
Hi there, my name is Belinda Platt. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at the LMU in Munich. I come from the UK and have been living here for 3 years.
Yeah, Simon is here on with this Google Hangout with us too. So Simon, maybe you could say just a few words about you.
Hi, hello everyone. So I'm Simon. I'm doing a postdoc. It's my second postdoc experience here in Fraunhofer in Germany. We're the data institute, so we're doing data science mostly. I have a background also in English-speaking countries. I'm from Malta, where I studied, and I also did my PhD in Ireland and my first postdoc there. So I also transitioned from English-speaking to German. And that's all.
And our last panelist is Anna. She's from Germany, living in Germany. Anna, maybe you could say just a few words what you're doing and why you take part in this hangout today.
Yeah, hi, I'm Anna. I work in the DFG head office. The DFG is the German Research Foundation, and it is also based in Bonn. And one of my tasks at this job is to actually inform early career researchers about the DFG's funding opportunities.
So you see, we tried to cover different topics in our panelists, or with our panelists already. Regarding our audience, if you're watching live today and want to ask us questions, then use the panel on the side of the screen to ask a question. You will only be able to ask questions this way if you're signed in Google+. If you see someone has asked a similar question, you're invited to vote on that question by clicking on the right-hand side, and then we see which questions are the most popular. If you're not on Google+, you can tweet at jobs.ac.uk, but you must also use the hashtag JobsQ, and then we can introduce your questions also to this hangout. We have already getting questions in, so let's go with the questions, and I would start with a more soft question about language issues, because that's always an issue. And then I would like to ask Belinda, what's your experience? Can you survive without German?
Let's try again with the microphone on.
Okay.
So I definitely know of colleagues, British colleagues who have moved to Germany for postdocs here, who don't speak any German, have never spoken any German, and they have managed to progress in their postdoc careers here. But for me, in my field, it wouldn't be possible to work here without speaking German, because I'm working not only with children and adolescents, but also with patient groups. So my German's definitely not perfect at all, but I'd say I'm around level of B2, kind of somewhere between intermediate and advanced level of German. And yeah, that's definitely essential for my work with the patients.
As you do clinical research.
Yeah.
Simon, what's about you and your research group? Are you talking German within your research group in the Fraunhofer Institute? So what's about the language issue you are confronted with?
Yeah, so I'm actually one of the examples where in my case I don't really, strictly speaking, need German, the language, to progress and do my work here. So However, from a social point of view, it always helps to speak German because you're not just here to work, right? But from a work point of view, it of course also helps if you're especially going to work with the local industry or local companies. It's a big plus, yeah. However, you can also turn it into an opportunity. So, like in my group, we also target international industry, for example. There are people who have fluent German, who might not be German, who work with the local German-speaking industry, but it's not just that, like it's an open world today, yeah. That's my experience, I think.
Okay, thanks for that. In Germany, we have a lot of possibilities to do a postdoc. There are fellowships, postdoctoral positions, there are junior professorships, there's habilitation. I think quite interesting to Germany is that you can find good positions in applied and in basic research, and then we have quite an interdisciplinary approach, but we have also some interesting things like junior group leaders. So Anna, maybe could you explain a little bit about this special program we have, which are you mainly funded, which is mainly funded also by the DFG. Anna? Okay, I guess Anna dropped out. So, as I already mentioned, there are different career paths in Germany. So, Simon, as far as I know, you did also a postdoc in Ireland. So, how is the different experience between Ireland and Germany? Is there a difference, or is it quite the same thing?
There are a couple of differences, yeah. So another thing is like in the group I was in Ireland, it was also very international. So and there was actually a lot of German people working there. So also I worked a lot with European projects with German partners. So it was not like I was very familiar with Germany and the German cultural, the way of working and everything. So, but of course there's differences, but I could say really that at the end it's all the same at this level. We're doing research as a postdoc. So it's very similar in that sense, but of course there's the language differences, some cultural differences, things like at work maybe people here are much more keen to separate between the work and the private life, so things like that. But otherwise, from a actual research point of view, it's practically the same.
Belinda, do you have something to add on that?
Yeah, I guess just to echo what Simon said, really, that I didn't have a postdoc position in Oxford where I did my PhD. I think this was my first postdoc position, but I have the impression that the general structures are fairly similar, or the postdoc structure is fairly similar to what I know from the UK. It's more like cultural differences, like in the ways that people work or the focuses that people have on their work that are slightly different here. Yeah.
Okay, I think regarding like to PhD postdoc is we are talking normally on position and contracts we are dealing with. Maybe you could explain a little bit your situation. Do you have a contract or do you receive a scholarship at the moment, Belinda?
Yeah, so I have a contract, and my initial contract was for 2 years to work on one specific project, and then this project has been extended basically, so I'm on an extension of that, and I have another 3 years now, and I'm, I guess, a bit in the lucky position that I'm working within the medical faculty, working within a clinic where there's maybe a bit more money going around than there would be in some research groups in the UK, and so that my boss can help me to bridge the gap between different grants.
Okay.
And I wasn't really familiar with that as much from Oxford, at least, or from the UK, that once your funding runs out for one position, that's definitely over. Like there's no bridging, there's no chances for that. So a bit of internal money, I guess, has helped me there. But I don't think that's necessarily typical of Germany. That could just be like my specific case here at the NMU.
Yeah, okay. Simon is working at a public institution, the Fraunhofer Institute, which is known for applied research and contracts with industry. So Simon, what's your situation? How came you to Germany? Was it a scholarship at first, or what's about the contract you received coming to Germany?
So yeah, actually I first I applied for an ERTSIM European fellowships, yeah, and I selected Fraunhofer Institute, where I am now. And that gave me a year, because these fellowships run for 1 year, and gave me a year to meet the people here, see the way they work, and get a bit of a feel about the projects and the objectives and the interests of the people here. And after that, I applied and I got a full contract, so I have like a proper full contract now for the next, well, it was 40 years. With, of course, a chance to extend it if you do well, so there should be no problem about that. And yes, it's the German public service scale also when it comes to the benefits, which is very easy to find online. You can see the bad TV salary scales for the remuneration, and yeah, it's pretty standard very much here. So
that's maybe something we should add. We have a public paid system in Germany, so there's not much place for negotiations, which means for the basic salary you can negotiate in your group for staff and so on, but the payment is on a really regular level in Germany. It's the TVÖD, the TVOED, which you can find online, where you can see what you're going to earn, and as a postdoc researcher, and it's mainly all over the same in Germany in public institutions. In industry, that might be something different. As maybe the audience knows, in Germany nearly 2/3 of research is done in industry, and just 1/3 is done in publicly founded research institutions, but nevertheless we are talking over more than 1,000 institutions publicly funded, so a lot of positions are available. But it's always a matter of money and funding, because you cannot survive without money, and we have some questions here regarding this topic, regarding the source and apply for funding, and I personally would like to answer a question regarding the funding bodies. So regarding for postdoc positions, you have to have made a distinction between research performing organizations such as Fraunhofer, or like a university hospital Belinda is in, which offering positions, which offering funding on their own, but we also have main funding mechanisms financed by the Ministry of Education and Research. And the main three institutions you have to know is the DAD, the German Academic Exchange Service, the institution I'm working for. We have a postdoctoral program, a European scheme called PRIME, where you could come to Germany for a year, and then you have another half year spending in another country, in a third-party country. And the main funding institutions on postdoctoral level are the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, and there was a question also regarding that foundation, especially that foundation. So these are the most prestigious scholarships we have to offer in Germany, and we have the German Research Council, who is fostering research, who is investing nearly 2 billion euros each year into basic research, and they found junior group leaders, but they also have programs for postdoctoral positions available. And as I said, normally these funding schemes are open to researchers from all over the world. We have no restrictions to European countries in Germany, and we are quite international. And I would like to ask maybe Belinda, do you work with colleagues from other nationalities, or it's just Germans around you? What's about the international life in your research group, in the hospital you're working in?
So the environment I'm in is very German. And I guess I kind of expected moving to Germany, being the spoiled British person that I am, that things would happen kind of in English, that meetings would be in English, and obviously I'd speak to patients in German, but that everything else would happen in English. But actually there's only me and maybe one other colleague who are not German, and the rest are German, so everything, the daily life happens in German. All my emails I write in German. My phone conversations are in German. The administration's all done in German. But I think that's really something that's quite specific to not only, probably just because it's child and adolescent psychiatry. So anyone who is involved in any way in our clinic needs to be able to speak good German, and therefore by default the language is like that. And I think it made my first week or so, or perhaps even month or so, pretty scary because I was used to kind of school German, and actually speaking it every day is a completely different story. But I definitely see it now as a major advantage of my lab group that I have the chance to practice, because no one expects me. People are expecting me to speak German, and so anything I can do is a bonus. And I think if I could speak English to them, if it was socially acceptable to speak English to them, I probably would. I think, yeah, I think I can't pretend like I would try and make the effort to keep speaking German. So that has really helped me to learn the language. It was kind of a bit of a throw in at the deep end, but it means that my German's now got much more fluent than it would have been otherwise, I think, which has helped me socially. So yeah, a bit scary, but good.
Yeah, so Simon, what's about the situation within your Fraunhofer Institute? I mean, it's just one Fraunhofer Institute out of the 66, but as far as I know, Fraunhofer is quite international and it's quite attracting a lot of researchers from all over the world.
For sure, but I would also echo what Belinda was just saying, because I was also quite surprised when I first moved here, and I would guess like around 60% of the people are actually German or fluent German speakers. Which was a bit different. Of course, in Ireland, people who were speaking English was not a problem for me, but most of the people were international, the majority, and here the vast majority, I would say, they're either German or like people who can speak German fluently. So, of course, as an English speaker with no knowledge of German, I struggled a bit at first. Now I'm in a situation where I learned a bit basic German. I'm not very confident and comfortable speaking German, but I at least understand. And as Belinda said, like administrative stuff and contracts and email, which do the rounds at work, they tend to be in German. Yeah. So and also I we do some work with the university here, and there it's a bit better because we also target graduate students, like master students, who take the course at an international level. So at university it's a bit more English friendly, but at Fraunhofer it's very German, I must say. And of course it's an opportunity for people to learn the language. And as Belinda said as well, it really helps socially if you learn the language anyway. But it's not a requirement that you come here with very good German skills, from my experience.
Okay. To our audience, we are going to post the main relevant links afterwards, and we are going to send them to you also regarding the funding bodies I mentioned a little bit earlier. We have here a question regarding the application on Humboldt Foundation, but this might be also a more general question. So the question is, how are the research fellowships judged? And I would like to answer here that it's mainly on what you have done and on your research experience. So this is what we are judging on if you apply for a postdoc in Germany. So it's not on social criteria, or it doesn't matter where you come from. So it's mainly your experience in research and your what you're doing in your research and how concrete and how interesting is your research project. So that would be one part of the application procedure and judging procedure. We have always independent judges in the foundations regarding the Humboldt Foundation, but also the other funding bodies mentioned. And here's also a question regarding what is the best way to approach your host and how does the relationship work? So it's always hard to find a host institution or a supervisor. So Belinda, how did you manage to find your host institution or the person you're working with?
Perseverance, I would say. So I started looking a bit while I was still in the UK, and I knew I would be moving to Germany. And I started to look for people in Munich, where I knew I was moving to, who were doing similar research to me, and found 2 or 3 research groups where I thought I could fit in quite nicely, and started off by approaching the professors there, I think initially in English, and that didn't really get me anywhere. And then I started approaching people in German. So my husband is German and started helping me to formulate emails and letters. And I would definitely recommend doing that. Find a German friend or colleague or someone who can help you to just write these emails in German. Even if you know full well you can't speak German, you just need to get your foot in the door and get their attention. So I contacted people who I thought might be relevant for me and applied for positions in their group, again without success. But eventually one of the professors who I'd approached got back in touch with me and said that they had a position coming up. And in the end, that's the position I ended up taking. So I would definitely recommend not waiting until you see something advertised, or not waiting until someone approaches you, because maybe it's a bit of a German cultural thing as well, but people expect you to be independent and expect you to go out and find your own things. And I think it's perfectly okay to write to professors or PIs multiple times and just keep pestering them until they until they answer, and to do that in German as much as you can.
And how did you figure out the right professors? I mean, we have a rich research landscape, so how did you figure out whom to write? I mean, this might be the first step, so you have to have a contact, or where was a starting point?
Yeah, I actually just Googled people. So I was actually just Googling like Munich, child and adolescent psychiatry, depression, MRI, different keywords, until I found what the main universities were here, until I found what the main departments were, until I found out within those departments where the group leaders were. But it can be quite a challenge because a lot of institutions in Germany still have their websites in German, so it can be hard to navigate those to find things. And there, I think I was definitely lucky that I had someone at home that could help me to navigate those institutional websites a bit. But yeah, I guess the way you would do if you were like looking for a research position in any country, I think using the internet and just through contacts, talk to people. Do you know anyone in Munich who might be doing things similar to me? That sort of thing, and just ask around and get a feel for it, and then approach a certain number of people and don't expect to hear from about 80% of them. Expect to hear from about 10 or 20%, and then for one of those leads to kind of follow up. So I think you really have to be quite perseverant, but yeah, worked out for me in the end.
Okay, yeah, maybe that would have be useful for you. I would recommend a really a nice website. It's called Research Explorer. It's put entirely English online, and it's actually a main index of all research institutions and their departments, over 22,000 departments, where you can search for your field of research. You can also search for a location, and then you go deep in that. So that might be interesting for people who are going to Germany to have an overview which departments are in and which fields of research are in. And then you have there also the addresses and email addresses. So that's a really useful instrument we have established in Germany for taking the first step to look in to what is in for you and which is the research fields you're dealing with, and if to find a match within the German system. But Simon, how did you manage to find your institute, your position?
Yeah, my experience is a bit different. So it's actually very particular, and I don't think it's easy to recreate it. But I'll talk about it anyway. So first of all, I was working, as I said, with European projects beforehand, so that gave me a good chance to network. And I think as a PhD student or as a junior postdoc, you attend a lot of conferences. So it's always good to network and get to know people because then you expand your network. And if you meet someone who you think you could work with, and if you have someone in common, they could refer you. Yeah. In my case, it was special because I was actually supervising graduate students in Ireland before moving here, and then they came to pursue a PhD here in Germany. And through them, I was in touch with the professor who. Then I found out there was like also postdoc positions available. So it was then a good way how to, introduce me better, even though I kind of knew the professor. And that's how I ended up here, actually. So in short, network as much as you can. And if you are targeting, for example, Germany, you should target people with connections here because you really would need someone to refer you, especially as a person from abroad, yeah, to get the best connections to the people here.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's quite an important point. So I would also say it's a lot about networking, visiting conferences, maybe use the networks of your colleagues, ask colleagues of if you're staying abroad, if there's some context to Germany. So a first personal contact, even via a third or fourth person, is always a big helping hand. And one suggestion from my side also would be address the people as concrete as you can. So not just writing general mails, which we see a lot within research in Germany. I want to do a postdoc in Germany, please help. I mean, that's not helping and you will not get an answer. So try to figure out what is the research group doing you want to enter and really to address the issue you're interested in and what also you could contribute to that research group. So be as concrete as possible. If you write to somebody, but it's always face-to-face contact. And if you stay in Europe and outside of Germany, use conferences, use networking events in order to get in touch with people, in order to leave a first impression, and that might help. That would be a suggestion from our side. We are dealing with more general application side within research in Germany. I have here a question. I was wondering if you could possibly direct me to a relevant academic website or a career counseling forum in Germany. I would like here to mention the website Research in Germany, which is the main entrance portal for doing research in Germany. You find a lot of instruments and institutions over there, and you find information for PhD students, but also, of course, for postdoc students, information on living conditions, but also on research fields. And if you go to the social media channels we have, like Facebook, we have every day also postdoc positions available via our Facebook account. These are actually positions universities, institutions are sending in for us, so this is a good channel and a good entrance point to find more information on doing a postdoc in Germany and finding also some position. Regarding the application, and maybe Simon, you said you also advise the PhD students. What would you say? What is a good application, or how to write a good application?
Yeah, I don't think it's much different targeting Germany than it is anywhere else. Of course, if you speak some German, indicating this in your application could help. Belinda said she was applying actually in German, and that would even help more. However, if you don't speak German, then you should also say in the application that you are willing to speak German or to learn how to speak German. Because frequently it could be the factor which places you lower as a candidate than other people. So like if you're familiar with German, you should definitely flaunt it. Otherwise, to make a good application, really is just like focusing on your background and listing your skills and experiences. The more international experiences, I think the stronger it becomes, your application. So even if you didn't do anything with Germany or German-based institutions, international experiences always help a lot. So I think that, and yeah, I mean, you need some publications because publications at an international level, so at conferences which are known internationally with a good rating, that's kind of like certificates you have for you. So if people understand that you've been accepted by the scientific community in your domain, then you have very good chances in being taken more seriously than others. So I think here publications, as a researcher, you really need publications, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Belinda, do you have something to add on this? And I see here also some questions regarding fresh PhD graduates. You said you moved immediately after your PhD in Oxford to Germany. Maybe some suggestions are that the PhD student might not have the papers Simon mentioned a minute earlier. So what's about PhD students, and what about writing a good application, and you have to write a good application also if you're a PhD student and wants to do a postdoc afterwards?
Yeah, I think, so I was a PhD student when I was looking for jobs here, and or I just submitted my thesis, I think. But I was quite lucky that I did have some publications from my master's, and I had one publication from my PhD already. So I guess that was maybe slightly different. It's hard to say how much of me getting my job was due to that. But I think I have the impression that also what people really respect a lot here, or what people look for, is this like ability to work independently, ability to generate your own ideas, and to know what you want and where you want to go with it. And I think if instead of just approaching anyone who might be interested in working with you, you really think about concretely how you could contribute to their research group, and you can say specifically some techniques you've learned, research techniques that would help you, or would help them there, or some people you've worked with where you are currently who they might be interested in collaborating with, or anything where you can give them specific examples of what you can bring to their lab. I think that is really appealing. Really try to sell yourself to them rather than just telling them what your interests are, sending them your CV and hoping they might find that interesting. So be quite targeted. Also, for anyone who speaks either, so firstly, people who are native British, I really wouldn't underestimate how how much it's appealing to German institutions to have someone who's a postdoc who's native English speaker, because when it comes to correcting papers and preparing things like that, it's really sought after. But even if you're not native, if your English is quite good, to mention that I think really helps. And I think in general that Germany have the impression that they're really looking to get more people in from outside of Germany into research institutions. So the very fact that you're not applying from within Germany, that you're applying from somewhere else, is already in itself attractive.
Yeah, I could add on this that we have a big campaign running, research in Germany, and we're traveling abroad, attracting people. So it's in the internationalization strategy of Germany to attract people. We are quite aware, or Germany is quite aware, that they have to get people from outside in order to maintain the innovative approach we have and the applied research, but also the basic research in order to be creative. And we regard internationalization as a plus and an add on what we are doing. And it's definitely a goal of the institutions in Germany, but it's also a strategic political goal to attract students and to help them. And we see that in our policies regarding work permits, for instance. So actually, if you come as a researcher to Germany and you have your contract or your fellowship, it's normally no problem to enter Germany, even if you're from outside the European Union, I mean from a third country like India or Pakistan or from the United States. So it's no problem to get a work permit and to enter Germany if you have once that contact and letter of acceptance and the contract signed. So we are quite open in that regard, and also to maintain here in Germany. That's a big issue for Germany at the moment, and we are quite investing a lot in that. And that's what Belinda said. I could confirm that institutions are quite eager to attract people from outside and to get new people in, and especially, of course, English-speaking people. So this is what Germany wants and what all the institutions approaching, and there's a lot of support from the federal states and from the governmental level also to attract students into the funding schemes. At the moment, we have more than 50,000 researchers from abroad which are receive some funding from institutions, which is quite a large number, and you see that it's quite a international environment we have here in Germany, which we want to improve. So maybe turning a little bit also the questions, moving to Germany, cultural experience in Germany. I mean, what's your experience with the Germans? Is it hard to get in contact with people? How is social life? Just to stay in expat communities. So what's going on in that regard? Simon, maybe you could tell something about your life and your contact, and how is that in Bonn?
Hi. So yeah, I think it also depends a bit on the region. Yeah, I think I'm very happy to be in this region. I don't have any experience in other regions. I don't think it's to be very different, to be honest. But I'd like to say that I found people here to be very friendly. There's some ideas and stereotypes sometimes, but I had no problem whatsoever. I have been able to make many friends here. Of course, there's things like, as I said, people here are really intent on separating between private life and work life. Yeah, so you don't. It's kind of like, if you're in Ireland, it was not like that at all. Yeah, people were friends at the workplace and outside, and the two kind of things mingled a bit too much sometimes. But here it's a bit different. So it doesn't mean that people are not friendly. It's just I like to keep the separation. And from a social point of view, I've had no problems whatsoever. And actually, my impression is that a lot of German or German-speaking people like to meet non-German and English-speaking people, because it gives them the opportunity to practice English. And people here are very well aware of the fact that in today's world, English is required from an international point of view. So socially, I had no problems. Actually, it's an advantage because some people, maybe even the more interesting people, would like to get to know you or talk to you just because they can practice English. So I can only say it's been a positive experience for me.
Thanks for that. What about life in Bavaria? I mean, I myself graduated in Munich, I mean, I understand you have a German husband, so that might make things a little bit easier. But what is life in Bavaria? How is contact to German people? What is about the Oktoberfest, for instance? So what's going on there?
Yeah, I have to be a little bit careful what I'm saying, because I'm aware that probably some of my colleagues from Bavaria are watching right now. Bavaria is wonderful. No, I think, yeah, I think the difference is, so it's true that in Germany, the different regions, there seems to be some bigger competition between the regions in Germany than I'm used to in the UK, I think. And I think the differences between the different regions in Germany are more apparent to German people than they probably are to people who come from abroad. So, like Simon said, I have been to other parts of Germany, but I've only ever lived in Munich, in Bavaria, so I can't really compare to what it's like elsewhere. And for me, everything that happens here that's different to what I'm used to is just German, not necessarily Bavaria specific. Yeah, I also think that I found people very friendly here. That's definitely true, and people are really keen to meet people from different countries, from different backgrounds. I just think at first I found it a little bit hard. I met a lot of Australians and North Americans in the UK who were very, perhaps sometimes a bit too open, but very open and very forthcoming with information and want to go for drinks with you every day after work straight away as soon as you meet them. And I definitely didn't have that experience here. And again, I don't want to generalize anything to Germany in general, but I did find that it took me a while. For the first 6 months, I felt like I was having to make all the effort to try and get involved in social events and try and meet people and stuff. But then once people warm to you, I think they're just as friendly as they are anywhere else. I think maybe German people are just a little bit more shy, especially with their English, and the shyness comes across sometimes as not being as interested. But yeah, I don't think otherwise there are major differences in socially like that.
I have to add that we have quite a good support system recently installed in Germany. So we have a lot of welcome centers, as we call them, especially designed for researchers. The welcome centers, especially at university, it's not the case with the non-university research institutions, which offer help regarding relocation issues, help regarding finding a house, which might be some kind of difficult. Did you use one of these services offered by your institutions, or how was the help provided by your institution? Was there any help, or by colleagues, or also any structured help by the institution when you moved to Germany, Simon?
Yeah. Again, since I also work a bit in university, like there's even specialized talks, such as recently. Unfortunately, I missed it, but recently there was one in English. How the pension system works in Germany, what you should do, what are the different options if you don't plan to stay here when you retire, if you plan to stay here until you retire, and so on. So like they even had these kind of specific topics discussed and presented to researchers like me who have just moved here and just want to get a bit of an understanding of how the whole thing works. So there's a lot of this talks and meetings. So, and also there's like a reception center for new academics joining university. In Fraunhofer, it's a bit of a different story, but like there's still a lot of help from the individual people here. So I didn't find any trouble. Of course, my personal experience coming from Ireland, it's more bureaucratic. There's more letters to fill, letters to sign. Everything you have to agree and sign to it. So it's a bit of headache initially for the first few months to get around. There's still some things which I signed, which I don't exactly remember what they were, because there were so many that I had to do. But like this, I guess, it's normal, process. When you move to a new country, you need to get registered, you need to enroll to everything. They need to be known by the social security and so on. So yeah.
Okay, Belinda, some help from LMU or from the hospital you're working with? Did you have some offers, or how was the integrating within in the workspace and the work environment?
My colleagues were super helpful. So on an informal level, my colleagues would help me with everything and explain how all the different bureaucratic procedures work and where I need to go and what forms I need to fill out and how and why. And every time I need emails sending in German, they can like help me formulate things. And so my colleagues have been really great. And I know that LMU in itself also has a program to welcome international researchers here. I think I somehow didn't end up on them. I just wasn't on their mailing list, so I never got any of that information. But I know like a friend of mine who moved here from Edinburgh. He was put straight away on this mailing list, and LMU helped his wife to integrate as well, and to help her to find work and things like that. So there are definitely support mechanisms out there, but if for some reason you end up not being on the right mailing list or not finding them initially, I would definitely recommend just pursuing a bit and just persevering and just trying to find that way yourself, because I find in general in Germany there are so many opportunities, so many more structures and systems for support than I was used to in the UK. It's just that they're not always, the communication about the availability of these resources is not always done right till the end, so you don't always find out about them. But there's so much support there. So just pest your university until you find the right person, basically, was what I would say.
Okay, we have here a question. Will this webinar be recorded for later use? Yes, of course, the webinar will be recorded, and you can see all the information and get all the information later on the website jobs.ac.uk. We have here some questions regarding humanities and creating your own postdoc position with a solo research proposal in hand. Yes, this is possible, I would say. Especially if you're in your second postdoc. I mean, for the first postdoc, it's more like postdoc positions, but already if you're doing a second postdoc, there are a lot of opportunities to create even your own junior research group, as we call it. There's, for instance, the Emmy Noether program, which is offered by the German Research Council, where you can apply for your own position to be financed, but also, of course, for young researchers, PhD students who will work with you, and you can establish your own research group. And this is open to all disciplines, not just in the field of STEM or on natural sciences. This field, like this special program, for instance, is open to the fields of humanities. It should be research done in the field of basic research, as I said. Positions are available in industry, of course, but as I said, there are also a lot of opportunities if you have a good idea to create your own project. Of course, you could also apply to the European funding schemes like the Marie Curie Skłodowska-Curie Action, or like the European Research Council grants. And I would like to give a hint to a useful website here. It's the website of the so-called COBI, where you also find some host institutions, and the list over there is really, really long at the moment, more than 60 institutions offering themselves as a host for international postdocs covering all fields. So you can also see on that side that there is quite an openness in all research fields for the humanities. In a lot of cases, for sure, we have to admit, if you're dealing like with right, or you're dealing with history, or for instance with German language, of course there should be a good command of German language. And I see Anna is back with us. I just was talking a little bit about the Emmy Noether program. Maybe you could explain a little bit that program more. I was talking about the possibility we are dealing with the question if you can, with your own postdoc position and a solid research proposal, you can establish your own group, or you can go with a solid proposal and not just applying for open positions. And maybe you could explain a little bit on the Emmy Noether program, which you are the administration in within the German Research Council.
Okay, yeah, sure. I don't know what you talked about before, but so I just start explaining. The Emmy Noether program is for postdocs with a really outstanding record, for really high quality postdocs. And what you can do there is you can apply for funding for 5 years for a junior research group. So you would be the junior research group leader. And so you would be the PI of the group, and have, of course, PhD students to supervise. And this, of course, gives you a very high level of independence. And once you've finished with a group, you're usually applicable to apply also for professorships. So it's a very good way to build an independent research profile at an early stage of your career, so 2 to 4 years after your PhD. And what you would need to do to have this Emmy Noether program research group would be first to find a host institution in Germany. So this is mainly the point here.
And could you tell something about a little bit? We had later on a little talk on how is our applications judged within foundations and within the funding bodies. So what is the criteria you're judging these applications? I mean, is there a proportion of 20% basic sciences and the humanities, 40% STEM? So what is the approach for the judge panel for these programs?
So it's open for all disciplines. So for the humanities and the sciences, you can always apply for this. There are no deadlines, and there's not a strict quota. So what is just maybe important to know is that 20% of the proposals that get handed in actually get funding.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. So we have here a question on a person asking about the age restrictions. So Belinda, have you ever asked about your age restrictions, or do you feel there are age restrictions regarding postdoc in Germany? I mean, you came immediately after PhD, but maybe what you also heard in your work environment.
Yeah, so I think in general, because the German education system is a bit longer than the UK one, in general people seem to think I was pretty young for my stage in career when I came here, because I must have been 27, 28, finished my PhD and spent half a year learning a language and was ready to start my first postdoc. And most of my colleagues don't finish their PhDs until they're 30, 31, maybe a bit older if they go through the normal German system. So in that respect, I felt quite young. But in general, I think in general, you as an employer have so many more rights, or as a member of society in general, you have so many rights than you do, in my experience in the UK, that I can imagine Germany is maybe less likely to discriminate in terms of age. I don't know. It's kind of just an intuition I have. And as someone in the early 30s, I don't know if I can really talk about age discrimination that much, but I certainly have never felt that.
Okay, Simon, do you have some comments on that?
Yeah, I kind of have the same impression. I didn't see so far anything like that. So I think if you're good in what you do, and if you can convince the group or people or department or institute that you can contribute and offer something to them, I think you can just join here as a senior researcher, and that's no problem at all. So I don't think it's and as Belinda said, like here people have their PhD in their early 30s most of the time, so it's also quite unusual, yeah, that you're like 30 and you've done already a postdoc. So that could be also an opportunity. But I think if there are people who are who have done 2 or they're moving on to the 3rd postdoc, I think that probably just enriches their expertise and their experience, so they might be able to apply for even higher positions. And I don't think there's a limitation. I didn't see any evidence of that so far. So.
Yeah, Anna, maybe you could comment a little bit on that regarding the German point of view. So is it, or are people doing a 3rd, 4th postdoc position? So or what's the system in Germany, or when you should progress within your career? So leaving the postdoc cloud, as we call it.
Okay, so once you finished your postdoc or done 1 or 2 postdocs, you're actually regarded as a senior postdoc. But for the DFG programs, there are no age restrictions at all. So the only restriction for Emmy Noether program, for example, is that it should be you should hand in your proposal 2 to 4 years after completing your PhD. So the only important criteria is when you finished your PhD and not how old you actually are.
Okay, thanks for this. We also always have within the AD discussion, when does the postdoc end and the senior scientist start? So there's not an age restriction on that. It's just on depending on the path in your career. Talking on career paths, we have some questions coming in on how to get a permanent position and what is about after your postdoc life, after postdoc, and yeah, to get a permanent position within the German system, how look the opportunities like. So, Belinda, do you intend to stay in Germany, and then to stay in Germany? What's going on after your contract will finish?
Yeah, whether I'm staying in Germany is a question my boss asks me regularly as well. The answer is I don't know, but yeah, I certainly plan. So I'm doing my habilitation at the moment, which is kind of a second degree in Germany that you need after your PhD if you want to apply for professorships. Well, not essential, but a recommendation. And I certainly hope that I'll be able to get a permanent position at a university in Germany. And I'm doing all the things now that I can to make that possible. So yeah, looking at getting as many first and last author publications as I can, trying to write research applications for external funding. And there I would say that is a lot easier to do in Germany. There are way more opportunities for external funding here than I was familiar with in the UK. So I think from that point of view, actually Germany is quite a good place to be in for your postdoc phase, because you can get some more experience of applying for external funding that you might not be able to do elsewhere. And then, doing the teaching and trying to get some, experience of supervising and teaching lectures and things like that. So, I certainly hope that I'll be able to stay. But I have heard that Germany has less, at the moment, still has less professorships than a lot of other European international countries. So, I think the competition is just really high, and you just have to, hope that you get lucky and have a plan B up your sleeve.
Yeah, it's the famous bottleneck, like everywhere in Europe.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have to add maybe that there's going on at the moment a little political, or a large political discussion regarding permanent positions and giving a prospective careers and a sustainable career to young people, because we have this typical problem that after doing your PhD and to the professorship, there are a lot of possibilities, the postdoc cloud as we call it, but there are no career paths which are really sure, which leads you directly to a professorship at the moment. So this is one of the big issues discussed within the political system within Germany, and recently there has been an initiative published. I mean, we don't have the we have a lot of investment in tenure track recently, so we are working on that to give also some career paths in order to in order to keep people in the system and to give them some perspectives also in a longer term, because this is a big discussion. We have a lot of young people just having 6 months contracts, year contracts, but as I said, Germany wants to invest in that. We have talks on that at the moment, and we have made a lot of progress within offering tenure tracks like the TU Munich, but also different universities all over Germany offering tenure track programs at the moment. But maybe Simon, if you could give your impression on that. So what's about your perspective, your future in Germany, or you just intend to go to maybe somewhere else, or what?
Yeah, so I'm kind of see myself as a mobile researcher, so I have short and medium-term plans, but no long-term plans. Well, not maybe in Germany, so I will be here for another while, of course. I'm making the most of it. Also, which may be something maybe interesting, is in Fraunhofer. Typically, a postdoc is limited to 6 years. People like to change. That's a policy here. So, like, typical postdocs are up to 6 years, and then unless you change or you become a really leader, department leader, or something, that's where it stops. So, like, I would have like 5 years ahead of me right now. So after that, I'm still weighing my options, but I think it's a possibility to get permanent positions affiliated with the university, because I'm already connected. However, of course, by that stage, I'd be expected to be fluent in German. So that's just something I expect. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. So our Google Hangout comes slowly to an end. So Belinda, some takes or your takeaway or your top tip for young researchers coming to Germany. So what would be your final comment?
So I would say, don't be afraid to try and learn language, and don't give up too easily. I think if you invest some time at the beginning and see learning the language as an extra qualification you need for being here, you'll your opportunities just expand exponentially. So I would definitely recommend doing that. And if you're still not even sure about coming to Germany, I can definitely recommend it. I think the quality of life is just so high here that outside of the academic world and the opportunities you have at work, the opportunities in terms of healthcare, in terms of social life, in terms of travel, in terms of public transport and things like that, it's just such a good quality of life that I can definitely recommend it to anyone.
Simon, what would be your final recommendation or your final tip, your top tip?
I think Belinda covered the language, so I won't repeat that. What I would say is just like network as much as possible. If you target Germany especially, it's good to have people who can refer you. That's a must. As a young researcher, you could like at conferences or other events make the most of this possibility, that's the main thing. And of course, publications. Yeah, so you have to publish, because then you'll be taken seriously, and do not be demotivated by the language or by the fact that you're moving to a new country. At the end, it all works out, and in my experience, I think many people's experiences, it was a good move. It's maybe tough at first, but it pays off.
Okay, from my point of view, we are convinced, or I'm convinced, that Germany is a good place to do research and to have a good cultural experience. And I would advise all our participants in the Google Hangout to use all the websites which are out there for information. I just mentioned, like the Research Explorer, the index of the German research institutions, but also the website Research in Germany. It's a very, very good start or first starting point. For you, we have available first-hand information which we worked on for international researchers. And the message to be taken home, maybe from my side, would be Germany wants you, and we are looking and we are welcoming researchers because we need you, and we are looking forward to have researchers from abroad to Germany. So to our audience, if you are looking for postdoctoral and research opportunities in Germany, you can find opportunities at the jobs.ac.uk website, www.jobs.ac.uk. The recording of this hangout will be available shortly on the jobs.ac.uk website and on the YouTube channel, so a lot of time to also regather information if you didn't maybe could see all the Google Hangouts. So if you want to recap something or share it with the network, then please do. And on behalf of Jobs.ac.uk, I'd like to thank you, and of course our panelists, Belinda and Simon, for your valuable information. It's always good to have first-hand information and information for people who had the experience coming to Germany. And thanks to our audience for watching. We hope we have answered some of your key issues on this topic, and goodbye.